The rain in Sector 4 did not wash things clean. It was a greasy, acidic drizzle that slicked the neon-drenched streets with a film of chemical residue, reflecting the holographic billboards towering 40 stories above. Liam wiped the visor of his helmet, smearing the moisture rather than clearing it, and gunned the electric engine of his courier bike. The motor whined a high-pitched protest as he weaved between a hovering mass transit bus and a fleet of automated sanitation drones. Another 12-hour shift was finally over. The package, a small box of black-market biotech he had been paid extra not to ask questions about, was safely delivered to a shady clinic in the lower stacks. Now, all that remained was the commute home. Liam drifted his bike onto the off-ramp, the magnetic tires locking onto the deceleration strip. Above him, a massive screen displayed the serene, genetically perfect face of a council liaison. "Citizens of Earth," the liaison said, her voice smooth enough to slide over glass. "The Interstellar Council thanks you for your cooperation in the ongoing integration protocols. Security measures in low orbit are for your protection. Report any unverified atmospheric anomalies to your local peacekeeper unit immediately. Unity is survival." Liam snorted inside his helmet. Integration. It was a polite word for being the poor cousins of the galaxy. It had been 10 years since first contact, 5 since the treaty, and most humans were still trying to figure out why a dozen advanced alien species wanted anything to do with a polluted rock like Earth. Rumors on the coding forums he frequented suggested the answer was nothing good. Resource extraction, biological testing, or cheap labor. He parked his bike in the communal bay of his apartment block, a monolithic slab of gray concrete stained with rust and graffiti. He chained the wheel, though he knew a chain would not stop a determined thief, and trudged toward the lobby. The building was quiet, save for the hum of ventilation fans and the distant wail of a siren. Liam stepped into the elevator, pressing the button for the 32nd floor. The button stuck, requiring a second, harder press. Just another glorious day in paradise, he muttered to his reflection in the scuffed metal doors. He was 28 years old, with dark hair that was perpetually messy from helmet hair and eyes that looked tired even when he had slept. By day, he ferried packages for the gig economy. By night, he wrote freelance code for indie game developers, crafting physics engines for space operas he knew were pure fantasy. He was competent, sarcastic, and invisible. The elevator shuddered to a halt. Liam walked down the narrow corridor, the carpet smelling of damp wool and old ozone. He reached his door, Unit 32B, and pressed his thumb against the biometric scanner. "Access denied," the mechanical voice chirped. Liam sighed, his shoulders slumping. He wiped his thumb on his jacket and tried again. "Access denied." "Come on, Gary," Liam said, addressing the glitchy building AI. "It is me. It is always me. I just want to go inside, eat something full of sodium, and shoot virtual aliens. Access granted. Welcome home, Resident Liam." The lock clicked open. As the door slid back, the neighbor from across the hall, Mr. Henderson, poked his head out. He was an elderly man who seemed to live entirely for the purpose of monitoring hallway decibel levels. "You are coming in late, Liam," Henderson said, his eyes narrowed. "The walls are thin. I heard you talking to the lock again. Some of us are trying to sleep. Sorry." "Mr. Henderson," Liam said, stepping inside quickly. Gary was being temperamental. "I will keep it down. Nothing good happens after midnight," Henderson grumbled before retreating and slamming his door. Liam let his own door slide shut, locking it manually. Nothing good happens. Period, he thought. He tossed his helmet onto the couch and stripped off his soaked jacket. His apartment was small, a single room divided into a sleeping nook and a kitchenette, with his computer rig dominating the corner. The screensaver was bouncing a geometric shape around the monitor. He grabbed a cup of instant noodles from the cupboard, tore off the lid, and set the kettle to boil. While he waited, he walked to the window. The view was spectacular in a dystopian sort of way, a sprawling canyon of steel and light, stretching out toward the dark smear of the ocean. He leaned his forehead against the cool glass. He felt a dull ache in his chest, the same quiet loneliness that usually set in once the adrenaline of the road wore off. He had friends online, people he had raided dungeons with in VR for years, but in the real world, his circle had shrunk to zero. "Maybe I should get a cat," he said aloud. The kettle clicked off. Or maybe a plant. Something that does not require a software update. A sudden, violent shockwave slammed into the building. The glass against his forehead rattled so hard he thought it would shatter. The floor jumped beneath his feet, knocking the cup of noodles off the counter. Outside, the steady hum of the city was drowned out by a deafening, tearing sound, like the sky itself was being ripped open like cheap fabric. Liam stumbled back, grabbing the edge of his desk for balance. The lights in the apartment flickered and died, plunging him into darkness before the red emergency strips along the floor kicked in. Unauthorized atmospheric re-entry detected. A citywide alarm blared from the speakers outside, the voice distorted and panicked. Sector 4, shelter in place. This is not a drill. He scrambled back to the window, high above, tearing through the cloud layer. Streaks of fire were painting lines of violence across the night. It looked like a meteor shower, but the debris was moving with too much purpose, correcting its course as it fell. One of the streaks detached from the main cluster and banked sharply, heading straight for the cluster of high-rises where Liam lived. It disappeared behind the adjacent tower, followed a second later by a localized boom that shook the dust from his ceiling. "Debris," Liam whispered, his heart hammering against his ribs. Just space junk, or a government test gone wrong. He waited for an explosion, for the sound of sirens, for the building to collapse. But silence followed. A heavy, unnatural silence that seemed to press against his ears. Then, his doorbell chimed. It was a cheerful, generic sound, utterly at odds with the apocalypse happening outside. Ding-dong. Liam froze. He looked at the door. Who would be visiting at 2 a.m. during a planetary security alert? Ding-dong. Ding-dong. The chime was insistent now. Rapid. Liam moved slowly toward the door. He did not have a weapon. He had a baseball bat he had bought at a thrift store years ago, mostly for aesthetic reasons. He grabbed it from the umbrella stand, feeling ridiculous. "Who is it?" he called out, his voice cracking slightly. No answer. Just the sound of heavy, labored breathing on the other side. He checked the peephole, but the camera feed was dead, showing only static. Ding-dong. "Open the door," a voice said. It was female, strained, and resonated with a strange, harmonic undertone that vibrated in Liam's teeth, against every survival instinct he possessed. Liam unlocked the manual latch. He told himself it might be a neighbor. Maybe Henderson heard in the quake. He pulled the door open a few inches. The hallway was dim, the emergency lights casting long, blood-red shadows. And standing there, filling the frame, was a nightmare. She was tall, easily 6.5 feet, towering over him. She was encased in silver armor that looked less like metal and more like hardened, flowing mercury. The suit was scorched and dented, oozing a violet fluid from a gash in the side. Her helmet was retracted, revealing a face of terrifying geometric perfection, pale skin etched with faint, glowing bioluminescent tattoos that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Her eyes were wide, iridescent pools of shifting color, no pupils, just swirling nebulas of violet and gold. At her hip hung a curved handle that looked like a weapon hilt. In her hand, she clutched a small, pulsating cube that hummed with a sound Liam could feel in the marrow of his bones. Time seemed to suspend itself. Liam stared at the blood on her armor, at the alien grace of her posture even as she leaned against the doorframe for support. His mind, usually quick to find a joke or a line of code to fix a problem, simply stopped. The universe's deadliest female alien warrior arrives at my door with a mysterious item, he thought, frozen between terror and disbelief. She did not wait for an invitation. She shoved the door open, her strength knocking Liam back a step, and stumbled into his entryway. "Clear the sight line," she hissed, kicking the door shut behind her with a metallic clang. She scanned the room, her iridescent eyes darting from the window to the vents to the computer rig. The movement was predatory, sharp, and precise, despite her obvious injury. "You," she said, focusing on him. "You are the resident?" Yes," Liam stammered, lowering the baseball bat because it suddenly felt like holding a toothpick against a tank. "I am Liam. You are bleeding on my carpet." She looked down at her side. The violet liquid was dripping steadily. The armor seemed to be trying to knit itself together, microscopic fibers reaching across the gap, but the wound was too deep. "Temporary inconvenience," she gritted out. Then her knees buckled. She went down hard, the silver armor clattering against the laminate floor. "Hey!" Liam dropped the bat and rushed forward, his hands hovering over her, unsure where to touch. He had no idea if human physiology applied here. Did she have ribs? A spine? "Do not touch the perimeter defense," she warned, her voice weak. "Right. No touching." Liam looked around frantically. "Do you need—" "I have a first aid kit. It is mostly bandages and aspirin, or instant noodles. Sodium is good for—" "Shock." He realized he was babbling. He forced himself to stop. She rolled onto her back, grimacing. The glowing tattoos on her face flared brighter, then dimmed. My cloaking field failed. The quantum beacon was tracked. "Okay," Liam said, moving to the kitchenette and grabbing the first aid box anyway. "I do not know what those things are. I am going to put pressure on this. Is that okay? Or will your blood melt my hands?" "It is not acidic," she said, her eyes closing for a second. "Just precious." Liam grabbed a clean towel from the counter and pressed it against the gash in her side. The armor felt warm, vibrating slightly against his palms. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice shaking. "And why are you here? Of all the doors in the city, why mine?" She opened her eyes, the violet swirls locked onto his. "I am Kaylira, Strike Matriarch of the High Orbit Vanguard." "That sounds important," Liam muttered, "and terrifying." "I am hunted," she continued, ignoring his commentary, "by my own empire. They want this." She lifted the hand clutching the cube. It was small, roughly the size of a Rubik's Cube, made of a material that shifted between matte black and translucent glass. It throbbed with a low, rhythmic beat. As Liam leaned in, the cube reacted. The hum spiked in pitch. Symbols, complex three-dimensional geometries of light, erupted from the surface of the object, projecting into the air between them. Liam blinked. He did not just see the symbols, he understood them. Not literally, but intuitively. He felt a sequence of numbers, a genetic code, a locking mechanism waiting for a key. "It is waiting for a handshake protocol," Liam whispered, his coder brain taking over. "It is looking for a match." Kalira's eyes went wide. She tried to pull the cube back, but the light tendrils reached out, brushing against Liam's chest. The air in the room grew heavy, charged with static. "You see it," she said, her voice filled with sudden awe. "You perceive the architecture, and it is just code," Liam said, though he knew it was infinitely more than that. "Why is it doing that?" "Because you are the key," Kalira said, struggling to sit up. "The artifact. It contains a truth they want to bury. And for reasons I cannot fathom, it is encoded to a human genetic signature. Yours. Me?" Liam laughed, a dry, hysterical sound. "Lady, I deliver packages, I play video games. The only thing I am key to is a level 40 Paladin account and a rented apartment. The genetic signature does not care about your social standing," Kalira snapped. She winced as she shifted. "We have to move. If I found you, the hunters will be close behind." "Hunters?" Liam asked. "As in plural?" A low buzzing sound came from outside the window. Kalira's head snapped toward the glass. "Down!" She moved with a speed that defied physics. One moment she was on the floor, the next, she had tackled Liam, slamming him behind the heavy metal desk that held his computer. The window exploded. It was not a rock. It was a sonic charge. The glass turned to dust instantly, blowing inward in a glittering cloud. A small drone, sleek and black with red sensor eyes, hovered in the rain-streaked opening. It scanned the room with a laser grid. "Target acquired," a synthetic voice announced from the drone. "Routine safety inspection initiated. Please remain calm while we sanitize the area." "Sanitize?" Liam squeaked. Kalira pressed a panel on her wrist. Her armor made a mechanical hiss and seemed to expand, plates sliding over her exposed skin, sealing her in fully. The helmet snapped up from the neck collar, encasing her head in smooth silver. "Stay here," she ordered. She did not wait for an answer. She vaulted over the desk just as the front door of the apartment was blown off its hinges. Liam peeked over the top of the desk, terrified but unable to look away. 4 figures stormed through the smoke-filled doorway. They were human, clad in matte black tactical gear, faces obscured by combat masks. They moved with military precision, weapons raised. These were not police. These were Black Ops. "Secure the asset," the lead soldier shouted. "Eliminate the witness." Kalira stood in the center of the room, the rain blowing in behind her, the emergency lights reflecting off her armor. She reached for her hip. She drew the curved hilt. A blade of pure, crackling indigo plasma ignited with a snap hiss that sounded like lightning striking water. The soldiers opened fire. Liam squeezed his eyes shut, expecting the deafening roar of automatic weapons to be the last thing he ever heard. Instead, he heard a sound like hail hitting a tin roof. He looked up. Kalira had raised her left hand, and a translucent hexagonal barrier had shimmered into existence in front of her. The bullet struck the energy shield and disintegrated into glowing sparks. She moved forward. She did not run. She flowed. She closed the distance to the first soldier in a heartbeat. She did not use the plasma blade to cut him. Instead, she spun, using the momentum of her armor to slam the pommel of the weapon into his helmet. The soldier went flying, crashing through the drywall into the bathroom. The other 3 adjusted their aim. Kalira dropped the shield and ducked under a spray of gunfire. She swept the legs of the second soldier, her movement so fluid it looked like a dance step. As he fell, she delivered a precise, open-handed strike to his chest plate. A pulse of blue energy discharged from her palm, short-circuiting his suit's electronics. He seized up and collapsed, unconscious. She was dismantling them, systematically, efficiently. Liam watched, his mouth open. He had played games about space marines and alien warriors his whole life. He thought he knew what combat looked like. But this was different. There was no wasted movement, no screaming, just a terrifying, silent competence. She could kill them, Liam realized. She could cut them in half with that sword. But she is not doing it. The third soldier pulled a grenade from his belt. "Grenade!" Liam shouted, surprising himself. Kaylira did not turn. She sensed it. As the soldier pulled the pin, she reached out with her free hand, the hand holding the artifact. The cube pulsed. A shockwave of white light rippled through the room. Suddenly, the world went weird. The sound of the rain deepened, slowing down until each drop sounded like a heavy drum beat. The grenade, tossing through the air, moved as if it were underwater. Liam blinked, and for a split second, he was not in his apartment. He was standing on a burning plain of red grass. The sky was purple. He held a spear in his hand, and he felt a crushing, overwhelming sense of duty. Then snap, back to the apartment. Kaylira caught the grenade in midair. The time distortion ended. She tossed the grenade back through the open door into the hallway. "Fire in the hole," she said, her voice amplified by her helmet. She kicked the fourth soldier in the chest, sending him sliding across the floor to join his squad mates. The grenade detonated in the corridor. The blast was muffled by the concrete, but it shook the floorboards. Silence returned to the room, broken only by the hiss of the rain and the hum of Kaylira's plasma blade. She deactivated the weapon and turned to Liam. The helmet retracted, revealing her face. She was pale, breathing hard, sweat trickling down her temple. "That was the advance team," she said. "The heavy extraction unit will be here in 3 minutes." Liam stood up slowly. His legs felt like jelly. "I neutralized the threat," she said. "I do not kill unless given no other choice." She looked at the cube in her hand. It was glowing brightly now, a steady rhythmic throb. "It reacted to the combat," she said. "And to you. You saw the vision?" "I saw." "Red grass," Liam whispered, "and a purple sky." "My home," Kaylira said softly. "Or what it used to be." She strode over to him, grabbing his shoulder. Her grip was iron strong. "We are both targets now. If they find you here, they will vivisect you to find out why the artifact chose you. We have to go. Go." "Go where?" Liam looked around his ruined apartment. "This is my home." "I have a lease." "Your lease is terminated," Kaylira said grimly. "Pack. Only what you can carry. You have 30 seconds. Liam looked at his computer rig, his expensive monitors, his collection of vintage sci-fi novels. He looked at the shattered window and the unconscious soldiers groaning on the floor. He realized she was right. His life, the boring, lonely, safe life of Liam the courier, had ended the moment the doorbell rang. He grabbed his waterproof courier backpack. He shoved in his laptop, a portable drive, a change of socks, and the picture of his mother he kept on his desk. He looked at the baseball bat, then shook his head and left it. "I am ready," he said, hoisting the bag. Kaylira nodded. She moved to the ventilation grate in the corner of the room. She ripped the metal cover off with one hand as if it were made of cardboard. "Maintenance tunnels," she said. "They run beneath the entire sector. We can lose them in the subsonic levels." She gestured for him to go first. Liam hesitated at the dark, gaping hole in the wall. He looked back at Kaylira, the towering alien warrior covered in silver and blood, standing amidst the wreckage of his existence. "You know," he said, his voice trembling slightly as he tried to summon a smile. "My mother always told me never to invite strangers in from the hallway. I really should have listened." "Move." "Liam," Kaylira said, though the corner of her mouth might have twitched upward. Liam climbed into the dark. Kalira followed, pulling the grate back into place behind them, sealing them into the underworld just as the sound of heavy boots began to echo from the stairwell. The maintenance ladder seemed to descend forever, leading them down into the bowels of the megacity where the sunlight never touched, and the rain filtered through as a toxic sludge. Liam slid down the last few rungs, his boots splashing into a puddle of iridescent oil. The air here was thick, smelling of ozone, frying spices, and unwashed bodies. Kalira landed beside him with a heavy thud, her silver armor gleaming dully in the low light of the flickering sodium strips overhead. She did not look winded. She looked like she was scanning for targets. "We are in the sub-level," Liam whispered, adjusting the strap of his backpack. "This is where the transit lines go to die. Also, most of the people." Kalira surveyed the rusted corridor, her eyes narrowing as she tracked the movement of a large rat-like creature scurrying along a pipe. "It is a tactical disadvantage," she stated flatly. "Limited sight lines, poor ventilation, multiple ambush points. Why do humans choose to inhabit this?" "We do not exactly choose it," Liam said, stepping over a pile of fused circuitry. "It is cheap, and right now, it is the last place a satellite sweep will look." They moved deeper into the underbelly, navigating a labyrinth of service tunnels that eventually opened up into a sprawling, chaotic subterranean market. This was Sector 0, a lawless zone where the corporate police rarely ventured. Neon signs buzzsawed through the gloom, advertising everything from illicit biomods to vat-grown protein. Crowds of people and things that were definitely not people jostled through the narrow alleys. Liam pulled his hood up, trying to shrink inside his jacket. Kalira, however, walked with a stride that parted the sea of bodies. Her height alone drew stares, but it was the way she moved, like a loaded weapon waiting for a trigger pull, that made space. Liam hurried to keep up, his heart hammering against his ribs. Every shadow looked like a Black Ops agent. "Keep your eyes peeled," Liam muttered to her as they passed a stall selling suspicious-looking meats on sticks. Kalira stopped abruptly, causing Liam to nearly walk into her armored back. She turned to him, her expression one of genuine confusion and mild horror. "Peeled?" she asked. "You want me to remove the outer layer of my ocular sensors? That would render me blind and susceptible to infection. That is a poor strategy." Liam blinked. No, it is an idiom. It means, just look closely, stay alert, please keep your eyes in your head. Humans communicate in riddles, she grumbled, turning back to the path. "It is inefficient." They passed a vendor selling scavenged tech and old-world junk. Kalira paused, her gaze locking onto a discarded item leaning against a crate. It was a life-sized body pillow featuring a stylized, wide-eyed anime character in a magical girl outfit. Kalira's hand went to the hilt of her plasma blade. "Target identified," she whispered. "What?" Liam hissed, grabbing her wrist before she could draw. "That two-dimensional effigy," she said, her voice dropping to a combat growl. "It mimics a human form but lacks depth. Is it a decoy? A psychological warfare totem intended to confuse the enemy with its exaggerated proportions?" "It is a pillow." "Kalira," Liam said, feeling a hysterical laugh bubbling up in his chest. "It is for sleeping. Someone draws a character they like on it. It is comfort." She stared at the pillow, then at Liam, her iridescent eyes swirling with judgment. "You find comfort in flattening your companions into soft rectangles?" "I am not explaining this right now," Liam said, dragging her away before the vendor could yell at them. "Just assume everything here is garbage, not a threat." They pushed through the market until the neon lights grew dimmer and the music shifted from frantic electronic beats to a low, thrumming bass. They stood before a heavy blast door marked with a hologram of a spiraling, rusty nebula. "The Rusty Nebula," Liam said. "A smuggler I delivered to once said this is where you go when you want to disappear." They stepped inside. The air was thick with smoke that smelled like cinnamon and burning plastic. The bar was a cavernous space, repurposed from an old subway station. Tables were made from cable spools, and the patrons were a gallery of the galaxy's unwanted. There were multi-armed mechanics from the asteroid belt, hulking reptilian mercenaries drinking engine coolant, and hooded figures huddled in the shadows. As Kaylira stepped into the light, the conversation in the bar died. It happened in a ripple, starting from the door and spreading outward until the only sound was the hum of the ventilation fans. Dozens of eyes, some slit-pupiled, some compound, some cybernetic, fixed on her. They looked at the silver armor, the glowing tattoos on her face, and the curved hilt at her hip. Liam felt the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. He shrank back, realizing suddenly that he was standing next to a celebrity, but not the kind that signed autographs, the kind that signed death warrants. "That is a strike matriarch," a voice whispered from a nearby booth. "I thought they were myths," another rumbled. Kaylira did not flinch. She scanned the room, her posture relaxed but ready, challenging anyone to make a move. No one did. The fear was palpable, a thick, greasy tension that coated the room. "We need a booth," Kaylira said to the stunned bartender, a frantic-looking human with a cybernetic eye. "In the back. Private." The bartender nodded vigorously, pointing a shaking finger toward a secluded alcove. They sat down, the shadows wrapping around them. Liam exhaled a breath he felt like he had been holding for an hour. "Okay," he whispered, leaning across the sticky table. "Everyone in here looks like they are about to wet themselves. Just how famous are you?" "I am not famous," Kaylira said, her voice devoid of pride. "I am efficient. The Empire uses my caste for specific problems." "Specific problems," Liam repeated. "Like what? Parking violations? Stabilization orders," she said. "When a planet resists integration, when a colony refuses the tithe, they send us. We remove the leadership. We break the infrastructure. We end the will to fight." She looked down at her hands, the glowing patterns on her skin dimming slightly. "I was very good at it." Liam stared at her. He thought of the news reports he ignored, the vague stories about peacekeeping operations in the Outer Rim. "There was a colony," she continued, her voice lower now, almost drowned out by the returning murmur of the bar. "Terra Nova, a human settlement, 5 years ago." Liam froze. Terra Nova. That had been a massive tragedy. The news said it was a reactor meltdown, a catastrophic accident. "It was not an accident, was it?" he asked quietly. Kaylira did not meet his eyes. "We were told they were developing a biological weapon. We were told they were a threat to galactic stability. We dropped the orbital hammers. There was no weapon, just farmers and families." She looked up then, and the pain in her eyes was so raw it made Liam flinch. "I walked through the ashes. Liam, I saw what I had done. That was the day I stopped believing the orders, and it is why I took the artifact." She placed the cube on the table. It pulsed softly, a dull heartbeat of light. "This is not just a key," she said. "It is a convergence seed." "A seed?" Liam asked. "It is ancient tech, older than the Council, older than my empire. It is designed to link consciousness, to force a shared reality." She tapped the surface of the cube. "The theory is that if you activate it, it creates a field. Everyone within that field experiences the thoughts, the memories, and the pain of everyone else. Instant, unfiltered empathy. Liam stared at the object with horror and fascination. If you used that in a war, the soldiers would feel the pain of the people they were killing. Kalira finished. The generals would feel the terror of the dying. It would end the conflict instantly. Or if tweaked, it could allow one mind to overwrite the others, to impose a single will on a population, absolute control. That is what my empire wants. That is what the Earth Council wants. They were interrupted by a shadow falling over their table. Liam looked up to see a towering creature that looked like a cross between a lobster and a linebacker. He was wearing a leather trench coat that had seen better centuries. "I hear you are looking for a hole to hide in," the creature rasped. His voice sounded like gravel in a blender. "You are the contact?" Kalira asked, her hand drifting back to her weapon. "Names are expensive," the alien said. "Call me Vax. I have a safe house in Sector 7, shielded walls, off the grid, but it is not free. We have no credits," Liam said. "We left in a hurry. I do not want credits." "Courier," Vax said, his mandibles clicking. "I want muscle. I have a shipment of highly regulated optics. Stuck in a customs warehouse 3 blocks from here. The automated sentries are being difficult." "You want me to destroy the sentries," Kalira said. "I want you to distract them," Vax corrected. "While your little friend here cracks the lock." "Me?" Liam squeaked. "I hack video games. I do not hack customs warehouses. Code is code." Vax shrugged. "Do the job, get the room, refuse, and I shout your location to the bounty hunters scanning the upper levels." Kalira looked at Liam. "Can you do it?" Liam looked at the terrifying alien smuggler, then at the deadly warrior woman, then at his own shaking hands. "Do I have a choice?" "No," Kalira said. "Then yes." Liam sighed. "I can do it." The mission was a disaster from the start. The customs warehouse was less of a storage unit and more of a fortress. Rain lashed against the concrete walls as Liam crouched by the side service entrance, his laptop balanced on a stack of pallets. His fingers flew across the keyboard, sweat stinging his eyes despite the cold. "Hurry." "Liam," Kalira's voice crackled in his earpiece. "I am hurrying," Liam hissed back. "This encryption is military grade. It is shifting every 10 seconds. Above him, on the catwalks. Chaos was unfolding. Kalira was a blur of silver and violet. She was drawing fire from 3 automated turret drones and a squad of private security guards. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, scorching the metal crates. Liam flinched as a stray shot blew a chunk of concrete out of the wall 6 inches from his head. "Focus," Kalira's voice came again. Calm and commanding. It cut through his panic like a knife. "Ignore the noise. Look at the pattern." "I am trying not to die," Liam yelled, typing a command string that failed. "You are not going to die," she said. "I have the perimeter. Trust me. Find the loop." Liam took a breath. He forced himself to look away from the sparks raining down from the catwalk. He looked at the code cascading down his screen. It was chaotic, aggressive. But she was right. There was a pattern, a rhythm. He synced his breathing to the pulse of the encryption. "Gotcha," he whispered. He executed the override. The heavy blast doors hissed and groaned, sliding open with a majestic clank. "We are in," Liam shouted, "and move," Kalira ordered. She dropped from the catwalk, landing in a crouch beside him. She grabbed him by the back of his jacket and hauled him inside just as a hail of bullets chewed up the ground where he had been sitting. They grabbed the crate Vax wanted, a heavy, nondescript metal box, and sprinted out the back exit. Diving into the waiting hover van Vax had parked in the alley. As they sped away, Liam slumped against the wall of the van, his chest heaving. He was shaking, adrenaline flooding his system with a high unlike anything he had ever felt. "I did it," he wheezed. "I actually did it." Kalira looked at him. Her helmet was retracted, her face flushed with the exertion of combat. She looked fierce, terrifying, and undeniably beautiful. "You performed adequately," she said. "Adequately?" Liam laughed breathlessly. "I hacked a government lock while being shot at. That is at least a B+. A faint smile touched her lips. B+. Then, the safe house was a windowless concrete box buried deep in the foundation of an abandoned industrial complex. It was damp, cold, and smelled of mildew. But the door had 3 deadbolts and a jammer that scrambled scanning frequencies. Liam dropped his bag on a dusty mattress in the corner and slid down the wall, his legs finally giving out. Kalira paced the small room. She was still keyed up, her energy vibrating in the tight space. She checked the door, checked the vents, checked the corners. "Stop pacing," Liam said, watching her. "You are making me dizzy." "You were slow," she said abruptly, turning to him. "Excuse me?" "In the alley, when we exited the vehicle, you stumbled. Your center of gravity is too high. If a combatant had been waiting, you would be dead." "I am a courier," Liam said. "I ride a bike. I do not do tactical retreats." "You do now," she said. "Stand up." "What? Stand up?" Liam groaned but pushed himself to his feet. Kalira closed the distance between them in 2 strides. She was taller than him, her presence overwhelming. "Widen your stance," she ordered. Liam shuffled his feet apart. "Like this? No. Like this." She reached out. Her hands were encased in the thin underlayer of her armor, but he could feel the heat radiating from them. She kicked his right foot back, forcing him into a braced position. Then she placed her hands on his hips, rotating them slightly. "Drop your weight," she instructed, her voice low. "You are floating. You need to be rooted." She moved her hands up to his shoulders, pushing them down. Then she grabbed his wrists, bringing his hands up in a defensive guard. Her touch was firm, professional, yet electric. Liam stopped breathing. She was so close he could smell the ozone on her armor and a faint organic scent that was like rain on hot stone. He looked up at her face. Her iridescent eyes were focused on his posture, analyzing the angles of his body. But as the silence stretched, her gaze drifted to his face. She paused. Her hands were still gripping his wrists. "You are very fragile," she murmured. "No dermal plating, no reinforced skeletal structure. One strike could break you." "Yeah, well," Liam managed to choke out. "That is why I try to stay behind the desk." Kalira frowned, a tiny crease appearing between her brows, and she looked at his hands in hers. They were soft, unscarred, shaking slightly. "Why did you help me?" she asked, her voice softer now. "At the warehouse. You could have run." "You had the exit covered," Liam said. "And you trusted me." She looked at him, really looked at him, with an intensity that made his knees weak for a different reason. "I am not used to protecting something." "Soft," she admitted. "It is unnerving." She did not let go. The air between them grew heavy, charged with a tension that was sharp and confusing. Liam felt a sudden, insane urge to lean forward, to close the few inches between them. He saw Kalira's pupils, or the nebulous swirls that served as them, dilate. She seemed to realize the proximity at the same time he did. She released his wrists abruptly and stepped back, turning away. "Get some sleep," she said, her voice clipped again. "We move at dawn." Liam stood there for a moment, his skin tingling where she had touched him. Right. Sleep. Good plan. Later that night, the silence of the safe house was absolute. Kalira sat by the door, meditating or recharging. Liam was not sure. He lay on the mattress, staring at the cracked ceiling. "Are you awake?" he whispered. "Yes," Kalira replied from the dark. "Do you ever wonder if it is worth it?" Liam asked. "All this? All what? Survival? Yeah. I mean, look at me. I deliver packages. I eat instant noodles. If I disappeared tomorrow, the only thing that would miss me is the landlord and maybe a couple of guys in my guild. I feel like I am just taking up space." Kalira shifted. Her armor scraped softly against the floor. "I have never known a life without orders," she said quietly. "Since I was a child, I was a weapon before I was a person. When I ran, when I took the seed, I thought I wanted freedom. And now I am terrified," she confessed. "Without a war to fight, without a commander to tell me who to kill. I do not know what I am, if I am not a soldier. Liam, am I anything at all?" "You are Kalira," Liam said. "That has to be enough, is it?" Silence settled again, but it felt different this time. Shared. The darkness wasn't so empty. They eventually drifted into sleep. The artifact, which Kalira had placed between them on the floor, began to hum. The rhythm synced with their breathing. The violet light intensified, filling the room, washing over their sleeping forms. And then, the dream took them. Liam was not on the mattress. He was standing in a field of ash. The sky was burning. He looked down at his hands. They were silver, armored, and covered in blue blood. He felt a cold, metallic detachment in his chest, a wall built to hold back a screaming ocean of horror. He raised a weapon he did not recognize and fired at a silhouette in the smoke. He felt the recoil. He felt the satisfaction of a perfect shot. And then, crushing, suffocating guilt. My fault. My hands. Monster. Kalira was not by the door. She was small. She was sitting on a carpet in a warm room, smelling soup boiling. A woman with kind eyes and tired shoulders was pointing out the window at the night sky. "Look, Liam. That is Orion. There are stories up there." She felt a profound, aching loneliness, a desire to be held, a fear that she was invisible. She felt the softness of a blanket, the safety of a lock, the desperate wish for an adventure she wasn't brave enough to have. They woke with a gasp. Both of them sat up instantly, scrambling back from each other as if burned. The artifact's light faded, but the afterimage of the memories seared their minds. Liam stared at Kalira, his chest heaving. He saw her now, not the warrior, but the child forced into the armor. He felt the cold weight of the gun in his hand. Kalira stared at Liam, her eyes wide with shock. She felt the warmth of his mother's kitchen. She felt his loneliness. It was so raw, so open. "You," Liam whispered. "You killed them. The rebels on Cydonia. I felt it." Kalira flinched as if he had struck her. "And you just wanted to be seen. You just wanted to matter." The intimacy of it was violating when it was naked. They had seen the parts of each other they hid deepest. Kalira reached out, her hand trembling. She moved toward his face. Liam did not pull away. He leaned into her palm, the cool metal of her gauntlet against his cheek. He needed to anchor himself. He needed to know that the monster he had felt was this woman, and that she was here. And she was scared too. Kalira's thumb brushed his jawline. She looked at his mouth. The desire that spiked in the room was sudden and overwhelming, a desperate need to bridge the gap, to comfort and be comforted. She leaned in. Liam's eyes fluttered shut. Then she froze. She pulled her hand back as if bitten. She scrambled to her feet, backing away until she hit the wall. "I cannot," she whispered, her voice shaking. You are too soft. I will break you. I am death. Liam, I cannot mix with life." "Kaylira," Liam started, reaching out. A heavy boom shook the door. Sparks showered from the lock mechanism. A red laser grid scanned through the crack in the frame. Thermal signatures confirmed. A synthesized voice boomed from the other side. "Breach! Breach! Breach! They found us," Kaylira said, the vulnerability vanishing instantly behind a mask of tactical focus. "The smuggler sold us out." She grabbed the artifact and tossed Liam his bag. "Move!" The door exploded inward. Kaylira did not fight this time. She grabbed Liam's arm and practically threw him through the rusted back panel she had loosened earlier. They scrambled into a drainage pipe that dumped them out onto a service ledge overlooking the maglev tracks. Below them, the city was a canyon of light and rain. A high-speed train was approaching, its magnetic cushion humming like a giant insect. "Jump!" Kaylira yelled. "Are you insane?" Liam screamed. She did not argue. She grabbed him and leaped. They hit the roof of the speeding train with a bone-jarring impact. The wind tore at them, threatening to rip them off into the void. Kaylira activated her magnetic boots, anchoring herself, and grabbed Liam's belt, holding him flat against the metal roof. They lay there, gasping, as the city blurred past in streaks of neon blue and pink. Liam turned his head, fighting the wind. He looked down at a passing holographic billboard. It was a bounty notice, massive, rotating, two faces. One was a grainy security capture of Kaylira. The other was a clear ID photo of Liam, his driver's license picture, where he looked tired and annoyed, wanted. The text scrolled in common galactic script: terrorist collaborators, dead or alive. Reward, 500,000 credits. "We are famous now," Liam yelled over the wind, his voice bordering on hysteria. Kaylira looked at the sign, then at the horizon. "This is bigger than an extraction squad," she shouted back. "The Empire and your council. They are coordinating. They are sharing data. What do we do? We cannot stay on the surface," she said. "There is nowhere to hide. We need to go up, the orbital research hub. There are scientists there, neutrals. They might be able to decode the rest of the artifact without alerting the galaxy." "Space?" Liam asked. "You want to go to space?" "It is the only way," Kaylira said. "But Liam, once we leave the atmosphere, there is no coming back. You can get off at the next station, disappear into the slums, and you might live." Liam looked at the city flashing by beneath him. He looked at the life he was leaving, the empty apartment, the glitchy door lock, the loneliness. Then he looked at Kaylira. He looked at the woman who carried a universe of guilt in her silver armor, who had touched his face with a trembling hand, who had dragged him out of the fire. He felt the phantom weight of her memories in his head. He knew her now, and terrifyingly, she knew him. "I am not going back," Liam shouted, clutching her arm to steady himself against the gale. "I am done being invisible." Kaylira looked at him, surprise flickering in her eyes. Then she nodded. A single sharp motion. "Then hold on, courier," she said. "It is going to be a rough ride." She pulled him closer as the train banked sharply, climbing the magnetic rail toward the skyhook that pierced the clouds, carrying them away from the Earth and into the deadly unknown. The maglev train hissed to a halt at the terminus of the Apex orbital elevator, a colossal structure that tethered the Earth to the sky like a needle piercing a heavy gray quilt. The station was a chaotic sea of humanity and alien species, a sensory overload of announcement chimes, the smell of ozone, and the press of thousands of bodies desperate to leave the planet's surface. Liam adjusted the collar of the expensive, shimmering synthetic silk jacket they had stolen from a locker in the transit station. It was 2 sizes too big, but with the sleeves rolled up, he hoped it passed for eccentric, wealthy fashion rather than panicked fugitive. Beside him, Kaelira looked transformed. The battle-scarred silver armor was hidden beneath a long, hooded cloak made of heavy velvet, also acquired via questionable means. She had dialed down the bioluminescence of her tattoos until they were faint, ghostly tracings on her pale skin. "Remember the cover," Kaelira murmured, her voice vibrating against his ear. The heat of her breath made him shiver, though he told himself it was just the air conditioning. I know," Liam whispered back, forcing a smile that felt like a grimace. "I am the dissolute son of a corporate magnate, and you are my exotic bodyguard and companion." "It is a degrading stratagem," Kaelira noted, scanning the crowd with eyes that moved too fast for a human to follow. "But effective. The security protocols for the wealthy are lax." She grabbed his hand. Liam stiffened. Her skin was cool, hard as marble, yet her grip was surprisingly gentle. It was the first time they had touched like this without imminent death involved, and his brain short-circuited for a second. "Relax." "Liam," she hissed, "lovers hold hands. They do not hold them like they are handling a radioactive isotope, right? Lovers." Liam squeezed her hand back, his palm sweating. "I am relaxing. I am the picture of relaxation." They moved toward the priority queue, bypassing the long lines of workers and refugees. The checkpoint ahead was manned by a bored-looking human officer and a hovering security drone equipped with bioscanners. As they approached, the artifact, stashed deep inside Liam's satchel, gave a sudden violent throb. Liam flinched. The drone swiveled toward them, its singular red eye widening. Bioscan initiated. The drone's synthesized voice chirped. "Anomaly detected. High energy signature." Liam's heart slammed into his throat. He could feel Kaelira's muscles coil, ready to snap the drone out of the air. "Do not engage," Liam whispered. "Let me handle it." He tapped the small touchpad on his wrist, a jury-rigged interface connected to the comms unit in his ear. He had spent the last hour coding a loop script, praying it would work on military-grade hardware. "Officer," Liam drawled, pitching his voice to sound arrogant and bored. "My companion has a pacemaker, an experimental ionization model. If your tin can there scans her too deeply, it might stop her heart. And my father, Director Vane of Omnicorp, would be very displeased with the paperwork." The officer looked up, eyeing Liam's flashy, ill-fitting jacket and Kaelira's hooded mystery. "Pacemaker," the officer grunted. "She looks like she could bench press a shuttle." "She is delicate," Liam lied, stepping closer to Kaelira and wrapping an arm around her waist. He felt the hard plating of her armor beneath the velvet. Kaelira stiffened but then leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder in a performance of submissive affection that was so unlike her it was terrifying. "Please, officer," she purred, her voice dropping an octave. "My heart is fragile." Liam's fingers flew across his wrist pad. He injected the loop code into the local network. The drone's eye flickered. "Scan complete," the drone announced, its voice glitching slightly. "No anomalies. Have a pleasant ascent." The officer shrugged and waved them through. "Priority clearance. Move along." They walked through the gate, past the scanning arch. As soon as they were out of earshot, Kaelira stepped away from him, smoothing her cloak. "Delicate?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "It worked, did it not?" Liam exhaled, wiping sweat from his forehead. And for the record, you are about as delicate as a falling anvil. They boarded the cargo shuttle that would take them from the elevator topside to the transfer hub. It was not a luxury liner. It was a rust bucket called the Weeping Comet, flown by a pilot who looked like a pile of wet leaves held together by a flight suit. The pilot, a Xanthorian named Pex, swiveled his chair around as they strapped into the crash seats in the hold. "Welcome aboard," Pex chattered, his mandibles clicking. Safety features include a prayer and a fervent hope that the heat shields do not dissolve like sugar in hot tea. They did that last Tuesday. "Very messy. Comforting," Kalira said dryly. "Do not worry, pretty lady," Pex said, winking with 3 eyes simultaneously. "If we explode, it happens so fast your nerve endings won't even have time to send the ouch signal to your brain. You will just be gas, very peaceful. Just fly the ship." "Pex," Liam said, clutching the straps of his seat. The shuttle lurched violently as it detached from the magnetic clamps. The G-force hit them like a physical blow, pressing them into the worn cushions. Outside the viewport, the blue curve of Earth fell away, replaced by the crushing black of space. Liam closed his eyes, trying to control his nausea. The artifact in his bag began to hum again, reacting to the gravitational shift or perhaps the proximity to the void. The hum grew louder. It was not a sound, it was a vibration in the skull. Suddenly, the turbulence spiked. The ship groaned, metal screaming against stress. "Liam!" Kalira's voice sounded far away. The world dissolved. Liam was not in the shuttle. He was standing in a room made of white tile and cold steel. The air smelled of antiseptic and ozone. He was small. He looked down at his hands. They were tiny, pale, and trembling. A towering figure in black armor stood over him. An instructor. "Pain is information." The instructor's voice boomed, "Emotion is a glitch. Purge it." Liam felt a shock collar around his neck activate. The pain was absolute, blinding white. He fell to his knees, but he did not cry. He knew that crying brought more pain. He swallowed the scream, forcing it down until it became a cold, hard stone in his gut. He looked at the other children in the room, rows of them, faces blank, eyes dead. He felt the terrifying certainty that he was not a person. He was a unit, a number, and if he failed, he would be recycled. This was Kalira. This was her childhood. Liam gasped, tears streaming down his face in the vision. The loneliness was not the wistful sadness he knew. It was a frozen, void-like emptiness where love had never existed. In the seat next to him, Kalira gasped too. She was sitting on a soft rug. The room was warm, lit by yellow lamps. The smell of rain and tomato soup filled the air. A woman with dark, curly hair and laughing eyes was sitting in a chair, holding a book open. "The stars are not just fusion reactors, Liam," the woman said softly. "They are campfires, and one day we will go sit by them and hear the stories they have to tell." Kalira felt a warmth spread through her chest that was so alien, so terrifyingly pleasant. It made her panic. She felt safety. She felt the absolute, unshakable knowledge that she was loved, simply for existing. It was a sensation more intoxicating than any combat stim. "But what if there are monsters?" the child Liam asked. "Then we will be brave," the mother said. "Brave does not mean you are not scared. It means you go on anyway." The vision shattered as the shuttle slammed into the docking clamps of the orbital station. Liam and Kalira jolted forward against their restraints. The hum of the artifact died down. Pex's voice crackled over the intercom. "We have arrived, and look, we are still solid matter. I win the bet again." Liam unbuckled his straps with shaking hands. He looked at Kalira. She was staring straight ahead, her face pale. her breathing shallow. "Kalira?" he whispered. She turned to him. The look in her eyes was devastated. She looked at him as if she had never seen him before. "Your mother," she said, her voice hollow. She loved you. It was not a transaction." "Yeah," Liam choked out, wiping his eyes. "She did. And you, God, Kalira, they tortured you, they stole everything. I was forged," Kalira said, her voice hardening. "The walls coming back up. I was made strong." "You were abused," Liam corrected gently. "There is a difference." She looked away, unable to hold his gaze. The shame radiating off her was palpable. Shame that he had seen her weakness. Shame that she had seen his softness and wanted it so badly it hurt. "We have a mission," she said, standing up abruptly. "Get your bag." The research hub was a marvel of engineering, a sprawling ring station orbiting a gas giant that filled the sky with swirling bands of amber and violet. Unlike the grimy utilitarian corridors of the Undercity, the hub was pristine, white floors, glass walls, and air that smelled like recycled jasmine. They moved through the crowds of scientists, diplomats, and corporate spies. Here. Kalira's height and strange eyes drew attention, but in this cosmopolitan setting, people assumed she was a visiting dignitary rather than a fugitive super soldier. They found the laboratory of Dr. Viola Krell in Sector 9. Krell was a legendary xenobiologist, a woman Liam's mother had mentioned in her encrypted journals. The lab was cluttered with holographic displays and strange biological samples floating in stasis tanks. Dr. Krell was a hunched, bird-like woman with cybernetic implants along her temple. She looked up as they entered, her eyes narrowing. "You look like her," Krell said without preamble, pointing a stylus at Liam. "Elena's boy. You have her chin and her terrible posture." "You knew my mother?" Liam asked, stepping forward. Krell snorted. "Knew her? I drank cheap synth wine with her while we tried to solve the consciousness equation. Before she grew a conscience and ran, and before the council decided she was a liability." She looked at Kalira, and her expression chilled. "And you brought a wolf of the vanguard into my lab. That is bold, or stupid." "She is with me," Liam said. "We have the seed." Krell went still. She tapped a command on her desk, and the blast shutters over the windows slammed down, sealing the room. "Show me," she commanded. Liam placed the artifact on the central table. It hummed, recognizing the friendly technology nearby. Krell ran a scanner over it, her hands moving frantically. "It is active," she whispered. "The sequence is unlocking. Elena. You brilliant, mad woman." "What is it?" Kalira asked. "Truly? It was supposed to be the end of war," Krell said, looking up. "Elena theorized that conflict stems from a failure of imagination. We cannot truly understand the pain we inflict on others. The seed was designed to bridge that gap, to force empathy. If a general ordered a bombing, he would feel the fire burning his own skin. But the council," Liam realized, they did not want that. "Of course not," Krell spat. "Empathy makes you weak. It makes you hesitate. They wanted to invert the frequency. Instead of sharing feeling, they wanted to overwrite memory. They wanted to use it to edit populations, to delete rebellion." She pulled up a file on her main screen. It was heavily encrypted, but she bypassed it with a master key. "Here," she said. "This is what they are planning. A demonstration event. A holographic map of a planet appeared. It was a rugged green world on the fringe of the sector. The colony of Ethelgard," Krell said. "It has been resisting the new trade tithes. The council is going to deploy the seed there in 48 hours. They are going to wipe the memories of the resistance leaders. They will turn them into loyal, happy workers. 48 hours, Kalira whispered. There is more, Krell said, her voice grave. She looked at Liam with pity. Your mother. She did not just run. She was captured. The records show she is being held on the command ship overseeing the operation. They are using her biometrics to stabilize the weapon. She is alive? Liam felt the room spin. My mom is alive? For now, Krell said. But look at the capture log. Liam, look at who brought her in. Liam looked at the screen. The log showed a date 5 years ago, and a unit designation, Unit 7 Alpha, Strike Matriarch Kalira. The silence in the room was deafening. Liam turned slowly to look at Kalira. She was staring at the screen, her face a mask of horror. You, Liam whispered. Kalira took a step back. I did not know her name. We were told she was a terrorist, a biohacker threatening the core worlds. You raided her lab, Liam said, his voice rising, cracking with betrayal. You dragged her out. You handed her over to them. I followed orders, Kalira snapped, the defensive reflex kicking in. It was a mission. I did not ask questions. That is the problem, Liam shouted. You never ask questions. You just destroy. You stood there in my apartment and you acted like a victim. But you are the reason she has been in a cage for 5 years. I am not that person anymore, Kalira yelled back. The air around her seemed to vibrate with her distress. I am trying to fix it. You cannot fix 5 years of torture. Liam stepped closer to her, his fear forgotten in the face of his anger. You are not a hero, Kalira. You are just a beautiful executioner who finally got sad about the blood on her boots. The words hit her like physical blows. Kalira's eyes flashed with a mix of fury and anguish. She stepped into his space, towering over him, her hand twitching toward her blade before stopping. Do not presume to judge me human, she hissed, her voice trembling. You grew up with bedtime stories and warm milk. I grew up in a cage. I was beaten until I could not cry. I did what I had to do to survive. I would rather die than be what you were, Liam said, looking straight into her iridescent eyes. The tension in the room shifted. It was no longer just anger. It was a volatile, suffocating mix of hatred, grief, and a terrifying magnetic pull. They were inches apart. Liam could feel the heat radiating from her armor. Kalira could see the gold flecks in his furious brown eyes. They were breathing the same air, their hearts racing in sync. The desire to hurt each other was tangled inextricably with the desire to grab each other, to bridge the chasm of their shared trauma with something physical and violent and real. Kalira's hand raised, hovering near his throat. Not to choke, but perhaps to pull him in. Liam did not flinch. He glared at her, his lips parted, challenging her. The door to the lab exploded. The blast threw them both across the room. Liam hit a rack of stasis tanks, glass shattering over him. Kalira slammed into the wall, her shield flaring too late. Through the smoke, a squad of armored figures poured in. These were not human black ops. These were hulking alien shock troopers, flanked by sleek council drones. Secure the seed, a voice roared. Liquidate the assets. Dr. Krell was already moving. She grabbed the artifact from the table, her hands bleeding. She jammed a data chip into the side of the cube. Take it, she screamed, sliding the cube across the floor toward Liam. A plasma bolt caught her in the chest. Dr. Krell crumpled, knocking a console over as she fell. No! Liam screamed, scrambling toward her. Kalira was there first. She grabbed Liam by the back of his jacket, hauling him up. She is gone, Kalira shouted, her voice cutting through the ringing in his ears. We have to move. She deflected a hail of laser fire with her energy shield, the hexagonal barrier glowing white-hot. The ventilation shaft. Kalira pointed to a high grate. Go! She ignited her plasma blade, the indigo light cutting through the smoke. She spun, deflecting a heavy bolt back at a drone, blowing it out of the air. Liam grabbed the artifact and the data chip. He scrambled up the shelving unit and kicked the grate open. He pulled himself in, then reached down. Kalira! She vaulted up, grabbing his hand. He hauled her into the shaft just as a grenade detonated in the lab below, consuming Dr. Krell's body and her life's work in a ball of fire. They crawled through the tight metal tunnel, the heat of the fire chasing them. This shaft leads to the exterior hull. Kalira coughed. We can access the docking ring from the outside. Outside? Liam wheezed. In space? Do you have a better idea? They reached the airlock hatch at the end of the shaft. Kalira punched the emergency override. The outer door hissed open, revealing the terrifying, silent vastness of the cosmos. Magnetic boots, she ordered. Activate them. Liam tapped his heels. The boots clamped to the metal floor. They stepped out onto the skin of the station. The view was vertiginous. The gas giant loomed below, a swirling wall of storms. The station curved away from them, a spine of metal in the dark, and crawling toward them along the hull were 3 0G troopers. Contact front, Kalira said, her voice calm again. The warrior taking over. Stay behind me. No, Liam said. He pulled a heavy wrench from his belt, a tool he had swiped from the lab. I am done hiding behind you. He moved to her side. Kalira glanced at him. The anger from their argument was still there, burning cold, but there was respect too. On my mark, she said. The troopers opened fire. Silent streaks of light flashed past them. Kalira danced forward, her magnetic boots allowing her to slide along the hull. She parried a bayonet thrust from the first trooper and kicked him loose. He tumbled away into the void, flailing silently. Liam ducked a grapple hook. He swung the wrench with all his might, smashing the visor of the second trooper. The trooper reeled back, his suit venting oxygen, and Kalira finished him with a precise strike to the power pack. The third trooper charged Kalira while she was engaged. Behind you! Liam shouted. He tackled the trooper. It was a stupid move. The trooper was twice his size. But the impact threw the trooper off balance. Kalira spun, her blade slicing through the trooper's tether. He floated away, spinning into the dark. They stood there for a moment, breathing hard in their suits, the silence of space pressing in on them. They were back to back, a unit born of necessity. The courier ship, Kalira pointed. A sleek, black ship was decoupling from the far dock. It was the vessel bound for the colony. We have to jump, Kalira said. Liam looked at the gap. It was 50 feet of nothing. I hate you, he said, but he grabbed her hand. I know, she replied. They ran. They leaped. For a second, they were floating, weightless, untethered to anything in the universe except each other. They slammed into the airlock ramp of the departing ship just as it began to retract. Kalira dug her fingers into the grating, holding Liam with her other hand. They scrambled inside as the hatch hissed shut, sealing the atmosphere. They collapsed on the deck of the cargo hold. They were alive. They had the artifact. They had the location of the mother. But as they lay there, gasping for air, they did not look at each other. The space between them on the floor felt wider than the void outside. The revelation of Kalira's role in his mother's capture hung in the air, a poisonous fog. Liam curled into himself, clutching the artifact. Kalira sat up, staring at the bulkhead, her face like stone. We are en route to Ethelgard, Kalira said finally, her voice devoid of emotion. Rest. You will need it. Liam did not answer. He closed his eyes, but all he could see was the image of Kalyra's unit dragging his mother away, and the terrible, confusing truth that the woman who had saved his life was the same one who had ruined it. The universe outside the viewport was not behaving. In normal space, the stars were hard, distant points of light, indifferent and steady. But here, inside the warp corridor used by the automated courier ship, the cosmos had been smeared like wet oil paint on a canvas. Streaks of indigo and violet stretched into infinity, bending in impossible curves. Occasionally, a whisper would drift through the reinforced hull, not a sound, but a psychic pressure, a ghost of a voice from a parallel existence wondering where it had gone wrong. Inside the cargo hold, the atmosphere was even more suffocating. Liam sat on a crate of dehydrated rations, staring at the floor. He had been staring at the same rivet for 3 hours. Across the narrow aisle, Kalyra stood rigid against the bulkhead, her arms crossed over her chest, her silver armor reflecting the warping starlight that bled through the small porthole. They had been in transit for 4 days. 4 days of recycled air, the hum of the engine, and a silence so brittle it felt like it would shatter if either of them breathed too loudly. The revelation at the research hub, that Kalyra's unit had been the one to capture his mother, sat between them like a physical object, heavy and cold. Liam wanted to scream at her. He wanted to demand to know if she remembered his mother's face, if she had been rough, if she had felt anything at all. But every time he looked at Kalyra, he saw the cracks in her own armor, the devastating shame that she wore more heavily than her plating. Kalyra moved, the servo motors in her suit whining softly. She adjusted the strap of her gauntlet, a nervous tick Liam had started to notice. "We are approaching the perimeter of the Ethelgard system," she said. Her voice was flat, stripped of inflection. "We should review the insertion plan." Liam did not look up. "You reviewed it 2 hours ago. We land, we find the leaders. We try not to get shot. Repetition ensures retention," Kalyra said. "Repetition is annoying," Liam snapped. He finally looked at her. Her iridescent eyes were dim, lacking their usual swirling vitality. She looked exhausted, not physically. Her bioengineered body could run for weeks without sleep, but spiritually hollowed out. The artifact, which was strapped to the deck between them, let out a low, dissonant thrum. It had been doing that for hours, syncing with the distortions of the warp drive. Every time the ship hit a pocket of turbulence, the cube pulsed, sending a shiver of static through Liam's teeth. The ship lurched violently to the port side. The lights in the hold flickered and died, replaced by the emergency red strobes. The gravity plating glitched, making Liam's stomach drop as if he were in free fall, only to slam him back down a second later. "Warp fluctuation," Kalyra announced, bracing herself against the wall. "The navigational computer is correcting." The artifact screamed. It was a psychic noise, a high-pitched tear in the fabric of their minds. The cube flared with blinding white light, dissolving the cargo hold, the red lights, and the distance between them. There was no transition, one heartbeat. Liam was on the ship. The next, he was standing in rain that smelled of copper and ash. He was tall. He felt powerful. His body was encased in a shell of invulnerable metal, and his HUD was scrolling tactical data in a language he did not speak but perfectly understood. Target designated Insurrectionist Cell Alpha. She was walking through a muddy courtyard on a gray industrial world. Kalyra looked down at her hands. They held a heavy pulse rifle. Before her, kneeling in the mud, were 6 figures. They were ragged, bleeding, and terrified. "Please," one of them begged. "A woman. We only wanted food rations. We have children." Liam felt Kalyra's internal monologue. It was not cruel. It was not angry. It was a cold, terrifying void. Orders are absolute. The thought ran through her mind, a programmed loop. Mercy is a defect. Hesitation causes instability. Stabilize. He felt her finger tighten on the trigger. He felt the bile rising in her throat, a physical sickness she had been trained to suppress until it was just a dull ache behind her ribs. He felt the disconnect, the way she shoved her consciousness deep into a dark corner of her mind so she did not have to be present for what her hands were doing. Stabilize. The rifle fired. The woman fell. Liam tried to scream, but he had no mouth. He was trapped in the prison of her obedience. At the same exact moment, Kaylira was small. She was sitting on a carpet that smelled of dust and lemon cleaner. She was wearing oversized pajamas. The apartment was dark, illuminated only by the city glow outside the window. She felt a crushing, expansive hollowness in her chest. It was a hunger, but not for food. The front door was opening. A woman stood there, Liam's mother. She looked tired, her eyes red, a travel bag slung over her shoulder. "I have to go." "Lee," the mother said. Her voice was trembling. "The work. It is the only way to keep you safe. You understand, right? You are my big, brave boy." Kaylira felt the child Liam's confusion. He did not want to be brave. He wanted his mom. He wanted her to stay and read the book about the starships. He wanted to grab her leg and not let go. But he did not move. He had learned that if he cried, she looked sadder. And he could not bear to make her sadder. "I understand," the child Liam whispered. The door closed. The lock clicked. The silence that followed was heavier than any gravity well. Kaylira felt the child walk to the window and press his hand against the cold glass, watching a taxi dissolve into the rain. She felt the seed of a belief taking root in his heart, a belief that would grow for 20 years. "I am not enough to make them stay. I am always the one left behind." The vision shattered. They gasped, inhaling sharp, ragged breaths as the cargo hold reassembled itself around them. Liam fell off the crate, hitting his knees hard. Kaylira slid down the bulkhead, her legs giving out, the metal of her armor screeching against the wall. They stared at each other across the dim, red-lit space. They were both trembling uncontrollably. "You," Liam choked out. The tears were running down his face before he could stop them. "You did not even hate them. You just turned yourself off." Kaylira's hands were shaking so hard her gauntlets rattled. She looked at Liam with wide, horrified eyes. "You were just a baby," she whispered. Her voice broke, a sound of pure devastation. "She left you, in the dark, and you thought it was your fault." Liam scrambled backward until his back hit the crate. "Stop. Do not talk about it." "I felt it." "Liam," Kaylira said, crawling forward. She moved not like a warrior, but like something wounded seeking heat. The emptiness, the quiet. It was worse than the training pits. In the pits, at least we had each other. You were so alone, and you were a machine, Liam shouted, the anger returning as a shield against the pain. "I saw you execute them. A mother. She begged you. I had no choice." Kaylira cried out. "There is always a choice. Not for me. Not then." She reached him, grabbing the lapels of his jacket, shaking him. "I did not know what love was," she yelled, her face inches from his. "I thought it was weakness. I thought emotions were glitches to be purged." She let go of him, pulling back, her hands gripping her own helmet as if she wanted to tear it off. "But now I feel everything." She looked at her hands, horror-struck. "I feel your loneliness. Liam. I feel your mother's fear. I feel the ghost of every life I took, and they are screaming in my head. I cannot shut it off. I am defective. She curled into a ball, burying her face in her knees. The deadly strike matriarch, the scourge of the outer rim, was sobbing. It was a harsh, ugly sound, the sound of a dam breaking after 20 years of pressure. Liam watched her. He saw the monster he had feared, and he saw the victim she truly was. He saw the iron chains of indoctrination that had bound her, and he realized with a jolt that she was breaking them. Right here, right now, for him. The anger drained out of him, leaving only a raw, aching need. He moved toward her. He reached out and touched her shoulder. The metal was cold, but the woman beneath it was burning. "Kailira," he said softly. She flinched but did not pull away. "I am sorry." She wept. "I am so sorry." Liam knelt in front of her. He took her hands, the hands that had killed, the hands that were now clutching his, and pulled them away from her face. "Look at me." She raised her head. Her eyes were swimming with violet light, wild and desperate. "I am terrified," she admitted, her voice dropping to a whisper. I want a life where I do not have to hurt anyone, but I do not know how to be anything else. I am just a blade. Liam. That is all they made me." "You are not a blade," Liam said fiercely. "You are the woman who saved me in the rain. You are the one who refused to kill the guards in my apartment. You are the one who is crying because you have a conscience that is waking up." He leaned closer. "And I am terrified too. I have spent my whole life hiding behind screens, pretending I did not need anyone because I was scared they would leave. But I need you." Kailira's breath hitched. "You need survival. I am your bodyguard." "No," Liam said, shaking his head. "I need you. I need you to see me, the way you saw me in the vision. I need you to stay." The air between them crackled. It was not the artifact this time. It was the sudden, undeniable pull of two people who had seen the worst in each other and had not looked away. Kailira stared at his mouth. Her gaze drifted up to his eyes, searching for deceit, finding only open, bleeding vulnerability. "Liam." She breathed. She moved first. She surged forward, her movements losing their military precision and becoming desperate, human. Her hands cupped his face, the metal gauntlets cool against his skin. And she kissed him. It was not a movie kiss. It was a collision. It was clumsy and hard and desperate. It tasted of salt and recycled air. Liam groaned, his hands tangling in the hair at the base of her neck, pulling her closer. He felt the hard ridges of her armor pressing into his chest, a barrier he wanted to tear down. Kailira made a sound low in her throat, a mix of a sob and a growl. She pressed him back against the crate, her weight heavy and grounding. For a moment, she was the warrior again, taking what she wanted. But there was no aggression in it, only a frantic need to be close, to prove that she was real, that he was real. Liam's fingers traced the glowing markings on her cheek. The bioluminescence flared under his touch, pulsing in time with his racing heart. Kailira pulled back slightly, just an inch, their foreheads resting together. Her eyes were closed, her lashes wet. "This is dangerous," she whispered against his lips. "I could crush you. I do not know my own strength when I am like this." "You will not hurt me," Liam said, his voice wrecking. "I trust you." Kailira opened her eyes. The violet swirls were dark, dilated with desire. "I want you," she confessed, the words sounding foreign and heavy on her tongue. "I want this. I want to be soft for you. But if I let go, if I let myself want this, I will never be able to go back to the war. I will be useless to them." "Good," Liam said. "Be useless to them. Be useful to yourself." He kissed her again, slower this time. He kissed the corner of her mouth, her jaw, the sensitive skin where the armor ended at her neck. Desire is not a weakness, Kaelira, he murmured against her skin. It is not about taking. It is about choosing life. It is telling the universe that you exist for something other than pain. Kaelira shuddered. She gripped his shoulders, her fingers digging in, testing the fragility of his bones. She could snap him like a twig. The realization terrified her. But the warmth of him, the steady beat of his heart against her chest plate, anchored her. She pulled back, putting a foot of distance between them. Her chest was heaving. She looked like she had just run a marathon. "We have to stop," she said, her voice shaking. Liam nodded, breathless, his face flushed. "Yeah, okay. We stop. Not because I do not want it," Kaelira added quickly, her eyes pleading with him to understand. "But because I need to learn how to touch you without breaking you. I need to be sure I am choosing you, not just escaping the guilt." "I know," Liam said. He reached out and squeezed her hand. "We have time. We are not going anywhere." They sat there on the floor of the cargo hold, leaning against each other as the adrenaline faded. The silence returned, but it was no longer brittle. It was companionable. It was the silence of two people who had weathered a storm and found they were still standing. Kaelira rested her head on Liam's shoulder. The metal of her helmet collar dug into his neck. But he did not complain. "We are almost there," she said softly. "I know," Liam replied. "Are you ready?" "No. But I am going to be brave." Kaelira smiled, a small, genuine thing that transformed her face. "Then so will I." The ship dropped out of warp space with a stomach-turning lurch. The kaleidoscope of colors vanished, replaced by the stark, star-speckled blackness of the Ethelgard system. Liam scrambled to the viewport. "There it is," he said. Ethelgard hung in the void like a jewel. It was a world of greens and browns, swirled with white clouds. It looked messy and organic compared to the neon geometry of Earth. There were no city lights visible from orbit, only the faint shimmer of oceans and the rugged texture of continents. "It looks peaceful," Liam said. "Look closer," Kaelira warned, pointing to the upper quadrant of the window. Orbiting the planet were three massive, blocky structures, orbital defense platforms. They were silent and dark, but their weapon ports were open, aiming down at the surface like accusing fingers. "The Council's blockade," Kaelira noted. "They are holding position. The fleet has not arrived yet. We have a window." Kaelira piloted the ship manually for the descent, weaving through the sensor blind spots with a skill that made Liam clutch his seat. They breached the atmosphere in a fiery streak, roaring over mountain ranges and vast golden agricultural plains. They landed in a clearing 5 miles outside the main settlement, hidden by a dense forest of towering fern-like trees. As the ramp lowered, the air that rushed in was sweet and cold, smelling of pine and damp earth. It was a shock to the system after the sterile air of the ship. Kaelira checked her weapons. She had cleaned the blood from her armor, but the scratches remained. She looked at Liam. "Stay close to me," she said. "The locals will not be welcoming to strangers, especially not strangers who look like off-world corporate trash and an imperial executioner." Liam adjusted his jacket. "Hey, this jacket is vintage." They hiked toward the settlement. The town of Oakhaven was a collection of modular prefabs and hand-built timber structures, surrounded by a high perimeter fence. As they approached the gate, a spotlight hit them, blindingly bright. "Halt!" a voice boomed from a loudspeaker. "Identify yourselves! We are travelers," Liam shouted, shielding his eyes. "We have information for your High Council." Travelers do not land in stealth couriers, the voice retorted. Weapons on the ground, or we open fire. Kalira hesitated. To disarm was to be vulnerable. She looked at Liam. He nodded. Trust, he mouthed, slowly. Kalira unbuckled her belt. She laid her plasma blade and her sidearm in the dirt. Liam placed the artifact next to them. The gate creaked open. A dozen armed colonists emerged. They wore mismatched armor and carried kinetic rifles that looked 50 years old. They looked tired, scared, and ready to shoot anything that moved. Leading them was a man with gray hair tied back in a ponytail and a face carved from granite. He walked with a limp but held his rifle steady. I am Elder Jaren, the man said, eyeing Kalira's silver armor with deep suspicion. You are Imperial. I recognize the markings. Why should I not kill you where you stand? Because I am the only thing standing between you and the erasure of your entire culture, Kalira said calmly. Jaren scoffed. A bold claim for a trespasser. It is true. Liam stepped in. The Council is coming. They are not going to bomb you. They are going to rewrite you. He gestured to the artifact in the dirt. That box, Liam said. It is a memory drive, a weaponized empathy engine. They are going to use it to make you forget you ever wanted to be free. Jaren looked at the cube, then back at them. You are lying. Some new psychological trick. Get them out of here. Wait, Liam shouted as the guards moved in. Let us prove it. Prove it how? Jaren asked. Let me show you, Kalira said. She stepped forward, hands raised. One memory, just a few seconds. If I am lying, you can shoot me. If I am telling the truth, you will know. Jaren hesitated. He looked at the fear in his people's eyes. He looked at the strange, pulsating cube. One memory, he agreed gruffly. But if you try anything, my snipers will take your head off. Kalira knelt by the artifact. She placed her hand on it. She looked at Liam. He nodded, offering her his silent strength. She extended her other hand toward Jaren. The elder approached cautiously. He placed his rough, calloused hand in hers. Kalira closed her eyes. She did not choose a violent memory. She did not choose a war memory. She chose the memory of the vision she had just shared with Liam. She chose the feeling of the child Liam watching his mother leave. The crushing, suffocating weight of being powerless. The desperate desire to be safe. And then, she layered over it the Council's cold, calculated plan. The schematic Dr. Krell had shown them. The clinical intention to turn distinct human beings into obedient drones. She pushed the feeling into the artifact, and the artifact amplified it, shooting it into Jaren's mind. The elder gasped. He staggered back, ripping his hand away. He fell to his knees, clutching his chest. The guards raised their rifles. Treachery, no! Jaren shouted, holding up a hand. Stand down! He looked up at Kalira, his eyes wide with horror and tears. I felt it, he whispered. I felt the cold, the silence. It was not death. It was worse. It was the end of the self. He looked at his people. They are telling the truth, he announced, his voice trembling. The Council does not want our land. They want our souls. The mood in the clearing shifted instantly from hostility to terrified urgency. Come inside, Jaren said, getting to his feet with difficulty. We have little time. They were ushered into the central meeting hall, a large wooden structure filled with maps and radio equipment. How long do we have? Jaren asked, spreading a map of the sector on the table. Less than 12 hours, Kalira said. The fleet will arrive at dawn. Suddenly, a siren began to wail. It was a low, mournful sound that echoed off the surrounding mountains. A radio operator in the corner pulled off his headset. his face pale. Elder. Long-range scanners just picked up multiple contacts, massive displacement signatures. Kalira and Liam exchanged a look. They are early, Liam said. We need to get outside. Kalira said. They ran out of the hall, back into the open air. The sky, which had been a beautiful twilight purple, was darkening. But it was not night falling. High above, breaking through the clouds, were shapes, massive triangular silhouettes that blocked out the stars. 1, 2, 5, 10. A fleet of council warships, sleek and white, descending like angels of death. In the center of the formation was a vessel larger than the rest, the command ship. That is it, Liam whispered, staring at the flagship. That is where she is. That is where my mother is. The artifact in his bag began to hum violently, reacting to the similar technology on the ships above. The ground shook as the ships engaged their atmospheric stabilizers. A voice, amplified to deafening levels, rolled across the valley like thunder. Citizens of Ethelgard, do not be alarmed. We are here to bring you harmony. Please remain in your homes. Preparation for convergence will begin immediately. It begins, Kalira said, her hand drifting to her plasma blade. She looked at Liam. Her face was set, the fear gone, replaced by a steely resolve. We cannot fight that fleet from the ground, she said. We have to board that command ship. We are going up there? Liam asked, his voice squeaking slightly. We are going to finish this, Kalira said, for your mother, for this colony, and for us. Liam looked at the terrifying armada. He looked at the trembling colonists. Then he looked at Kalira, the woman who had learned to feel so she could learn to fight for the right reasons. Okay, Liam said, taking a deep breath. Let's go save the world. The sky over Ethelgard had turned a sickly, synthetic white. The clouds were no longer natural formations but screens for the thousands of drones descending from the orbital blockade. They moved in perfect, synchronized swarms, filling the air with a low-frequency hum that vibrated in the teeth and bones of every living thing on the surface. Do not be afraid, the voice from the sky crooned, amplified 1,000,000 times over. Harmony is inevitable. Pain is optional. Submit to the convergence and be whole. It was the most terrifying thing Liam had ever heard. He was crouched in the mud beneath the colony's primary communication dish. Wires from his laptop spliced directly into the heavy rusted cables of the transmitter. Around him, local technicians, farmers who had become soldiers overnight, were frantically adjusting frequencies. We are losing signal coherence, a young woman named Tara shouted over the drone hum. The interference is jamming our local net. Keep it open, Liam yelled back, his fingers flying across his keyboard. I need a direct line to the fleet's carrier wave. If I can piggyback the artifact's signal onto their broadcast, we can disrupt the command protocols. Above them, the sky lit up with streaks of plasma fire. Kalira was moving. She had taken a strike team of 20, a mix of hardened colonists and a few alien defectors who had been hiding in the mountains, and launched a desperate assault on a landed council supply shuttle 3 miles east. Liam watched the tactical feed on his second monitor. It was a chaotic blur of thermal signatures and muzzle flashes. Breaching perimeter. Kalira's voice crackled in his earpiece. It was calm, professional, the voice of the strike matriarch. Target vessel is fueling. We have 60 seconds before they lock down. Liam saw the dot representing Kalira surge forward. She was a silver ghost on the screen, moving faster than the human eye could track. On the supply pad, Kalira vaulted over a barricade, her plasma blade deflecting a hail of stun bolts. An Imperial shock trooper, a towering reptile in heavy armor, stepped into her path, raising a riot shield. "Stand aside," Kalera commanded, her voice amplified by her helmet. The trooper hesitated. He saw the markings on her armor, the sigil of the high-orbit vanguard. He knew what she was. "Matriarch?" the trooper stammered. "We were told you were rogue." "I am not rogue," Kalera said, not breaking stride. "I am awake. Drop your weapon, or I will remove the arm holding it." The trooper looked at her blade, then at the terrified colonists behind her. He dropped the shield. "The shuttle is yours," he hissed, stepping back. Kalera signaled her team. "Board! Go!" As the shuttle roared into the sky, punching through the drone layer, Liam turned his attention back to his screen. He was scanning the encrypted data packets flowing from the command ship. He was looking for the frequency key to the convergence generator. Suddenly, a file header caught his eye. It was tagged with a priority clearance code he recognized from his mother's old work logs. Subject: Architect 0, vitals stable. Location: command deck. Primary observation suite. Liam froze, his breath caught in his throat. "Mom," he whispered. He tapped the comms link. "Kalera, I found her. She is on the command deck. They are making her watch." "Confirmed," Kalera replied, the roar of atmospheric exit audible in the background. "I am coming for her. Liam, keep the network open. Do not let them silence you." The shuttle docked with the massive command ship, not with a graceful latch, but with a violent crash as Kalera rammed the airlock. She blew the hatch before the pressure equalized, the explosive decompression sending the welcoming squad of security droids tumbling into the void. "Stay here," Kalera ordered her team. "Hold the extraction point." She sprinted into the corridors of the invincible intent. The ship was in chaos. Red emergency lights bathed the pristine white hallways in blood-colored strobe. Gravity fluctuated wildly as Liam's hacking efforts on the ground began to destabilize the ship's core systems. Kalera ran on the walls, on the ceiling. She was a blur of motion. A squad of elite Imperial guards blocked the corridor leading to the bridge. They opened fire with heavy disruptor cannons. Kalera slid under the first volley, the floor searing where the beams hit. She activated her shield, angling it to bounce a shot back into a control panel, plunging the hallway into darkness. In the dark, she was unstoppable. The guards saw only the glowing violet tattoos on her face and the hum of her blade before they were incapacitated. She did not kill them. She severed weapons, crushed armor servos, knocked them unconscious with precise blows to the neural clusters. She burst onto the command deck. It was a vast, circular room dominated by a holographic projection of Ethelgard below. Standing on the central dais were three figures. Counselor Vane, a human man in a sharp gray suit who looked like a kindly grandfather, stood with his hands clasped behind his back. Beside him was General Raxthul, a scarred alien warlord from Kalera's own empire. And between them, shackled to a control console, was a woman. She was thin, her hair gray and wild, her face gaunt. Elena. Liam's mother looked up as Kalera entered. Her eyes were dull, drugged, but a spark of recognition, or perhaps fear, flickered in them. "Matriarch," General Raxthul rumbled, his voice like grinding stones. "You return to the fold, albeit with poor manners." "Let her go," Kalera said, pointing her blade at the general. Counselor Vane stepped forward. He smiled, a sad, pitying expression. "My dear, you misunderstand the situation. We are not hurting her. We are using her genius to save the galaxy. Look down there." He gestured to the planet below. "Those people are confused. They are fighting over land, over ideology. They are in pain. In 10 minutes, when the field activates, they will be at peace. They will understand each other perfectly because they will all think exactly what we tell them to think. It is slavery, Kalira spat. It is order, Vane shouted, his composure cracking. Humans are messy, they are selfish, they need guidance, and you are the one to give it? Kalira stepped closer. A politician and a butcher? Raxthul laughed. A butcher? You speak of yourself, little blade. You have spilled more blood for the Empire than any of us. You are a broken tool trying to pretend it has a soul. Kalira flinched. The words struck deep. Then, a shadow moved from the shadows behind the general. A tall, imposing female figure in gold-trimmed armor stepped into the light. She wore the crest of the matriarch supreme, Commander Valara. Kalira stopped dead. Valara had been her teacher, her mentor. The woman who had pulled Kalira out of the ruins of her childhood home and promised her purpose. Commander? Kalira whispered. Valara looked at her with cold disappointment. I protected you, Kalira. I hid your doubts. I polished you into a masterpiece. And you throw it away for… what? A courier and a colony of dirt farmers? I throw it away for the truth, Kalira said, her voice shaking. You told me we fought for stability. You lied. We fight for control. Valara drew her own twin blades. They hummed with a crimson energy. Then I will correct my mistake. On the planet's surface, the ground beneath Liam shook. The convergence generator on the command ship was powering up. A beam of purple light began to drill down from the heavens, ionizing the atmosphere. Liam, Tara shouted. The signal is spiking. If that beam hits full intensity, it will override every brain within 500 miles. I am almost there, Liam screamed. He had the artifact plugged directly into his laptop. He slammed his hands onto the artifact's surface. Connect, he pleaded. Come on, you stupid box, connect! The artifact pulsed. Suddenly, Liam was not in the mud. He was everywhere. He was in the mind of the technician next to him, feeling her terror for her children. He was in the mind of Elder Jaren, feeling his stubborn pride. He was in the mind of a council soldier on a dropship, feeling his doubt about the orders he had been given. The rush of humanity, raw, unfiltered, chaotic, slammed into Liam like a tidal wave. He gasped, arching his back, blood running from his nose. It was too much. The fear, the love, the petty grievances, the dreams. Control it. The artifact whispered in his mind. Direct it. You have the key. You can make them stop. You can make the soldiers put down their guns. You can make the counselors see the error of their ways. Just force them. Make them be good. The temptation was overwhelming. He could end the war right now. He could reach into Vane's mind and rewrite him into a saint. He could make Valara love Kalira instead of hate her. He could fix everything. But then he remembered Kalira's face in the cargo hold. He remembered her sobbing about being a weapon, about having her choices stolen. If he used the artifact to force peace, he was no better than Vane. He would be violating their minds just as surely as the council intended to. I can't, Liam groaned, tears mixing with the blood on his face. I won't do it. Then they die, the artifact countered. No, Liam thought. There is another way. He reached out through the link, not to control, but to find her. Kalira, on the command deck. Kalira blocked a strike from Valara that would have taken her head off. She was losing. Valara was faster, stronger, and not fighting with the weight of a conscience. Liam? Kalira thought, staggering back as Valara kicked her in the chest. I am here. Liam's voice echoed in her mind, clear and warm. I am in the network. I can feel them all. Kalira. They are so scared. The beam is charging, Kalira thought, parrying a thrust. I cannot stop Valara. She knows my every move. She knows the soldier. Liam said, show her the woman. Valara lunged, her crimson blades locking with Kalera's violet plasma. They were face to face, sparks showering them. "You hesitate," Valara sneered. "You are weak." "No," Kalera said, straining against the pressure. "I am not weak. I am just not alone anymore." She opened her mind. She let the barrier down, the one she had built to keep the pain out. She channeled Liam's presence. She channeled the fear of the colonists. She channeled her own guilt, and she shoved it all into Valara. It wasn't a mind wipe. It was a moment of perfect clarity. Valara gasped. Her eyes went wide. For a split second, she felt Kalera's heartbreak. She felt the betrayal of the child she had raised to be a killer. Valara faltered. Her guard dropped. Kalera spun, sweeping Valara's legs. The commander hit the deck hard. Kalera stood over her, the tip of her blade hovering inches from Valara's throat. "Finish it," Valara whispered, closing her eyes. "It is the mercy I would have granted you." Kalera's hand trembled. The instinct to kill was screaming in her muscles. It would be so easy. It would be safe. "Don't," Liam's voice whispered. "Choose." Kalera deactivated her blade. The hum died. "I am not your executioner," Kalera said, her voice ringing in the silent bridge. "And I am not your daughter. I am free." She turned her back on Valara. Behind her, Counselor Vane was frantically typing commands into the main console. "The demonstration proceeds," he shrieked. "Initiate convergence." The purple beam intensified. The ship groaned. "Liam!" Kalera shouted. "Now! Do it now! Liam, down in the mud!" Smiled through the pain. "Okay," he whispered. "Here comes the noise." He did not target the leaders. He did not target the soldiers. He targeted everyone. He took the artifact's buffer off. He took the safety protocols and shredded them. And then he broadcast the one thing the artifact contained that was pure, shared truth. He broadcast the memory of the night in the cargo hold. He broadcast the feeling of Kalera's terror and his own acceptance. He broadcast the feeling of being seen, of being forgiven, of being loved despite being broken. He blasted it out on every frequency, into every neural implant, into every radio, into the very air. The shockwave hit the system instantly. On the battlefield, soldiers dropped their weapons, clutching their heads. They didn't fall in pain. They fell in shock. For 1 second, every Imperial trooper felt the heartbeat of the colonist they were shooting at. Every colonist felt the fear of the conscripted soldier behind the mask. On the command deck, General Raxthul roared, grabbing the edge of the console as tears, actual tears, leaked from his reptilian eyes. He looked at his hands, bewildered. Counselor Vane collapsed, sobbing, overwhelmed by a sudden crushing wave of empathy for the millions of lives he had treated as variables in an equation. The convergence generator, designed to enforce a single rigid pattern, could not handle the chaotic, beautiful mess of genuine human emotion. It whined, the frequency climbing higher and higher until it went ultrasonic. "Warning," the ship's computer intoned. "System overload. Emotional resonance exceeds safety parameters." The purple beam sputtered. It flickered, turned white, and then dissolved into a harmless shower of sparks. The generator console exploded in a shower of sparks and smoke. The silence that followed was heavy. Kalera stood amidst the wreckage of the bridge. She looked at her mother, Elena, who was blinking, the fog clearing from her eyes. Elena looked at Kalera. She did not see a monster. She saw a terrified young woman in silver armor. "Thank you," Elena whispered hoarsely. Kalera nodded, tears streaming down her face. She tapped her comms. "Liam." There was static. Then, a cough. "I am here." Liam's voice came back, weak but triumphant. "Did we win?" Kaelira looked around at the stunned counselors, the disarmed general, and the defeated Commander Valara, who was staring at the floor in shame. She walked to the window and looked down at the planet, where the shooting had stopped and enemies were helping each other stand up in the mud. "Yes," she said, "we won. But not the way they think." She looked at the artifact in her hand, now dark and inert. "We did not change their minds. Liam, we just reminded them they had hearts." And that, she realized as the sun began to rise over the curve of the planet, was infinitely more dangerous to the Empire than any weapon. The chaos that followed the Battle of Eithilgard was not the frantic, violent chaos of war, but the slow, bureaucratic chaos of an empire collapsing under the weight of its own hypocrisy. The command ship Invincible Intent sat in low orbit, no longer a predator but a crime scene. Shuttlecraft from a dozen independent systems swarmed around it like flies, ferrying investigators, diplomats, and news drones. The feed was live across the galaxy. Counselor Vane, the kindly grandfather of the Interstellar Alliance, being led away in suppression cuffs, looking small and confused. General Raxthul, stripped of his rank insignia, staring into the cameras with the hollow eyes of a man whose entire belief system had been deleted. Kaelira stood on the observation deck of the colony's medical center, watching the ships in the sky. She was still wearing her undersuit, though the heavy silver plating had been removed for repairs. Her arms were crossed, her posture rigid. "They want to give me a medal," she said, her voice flat. Liam looked up from the tablet he was scrolling through. He was sitting on a plastic chair, nursing a cup of terrible vending machine coffee. His jacket was torn, his face bruised, but he looked more awake than he had in 10 years. "A medal?" Liam asked. "Which one?" "The Star of Unification," Kaelira scoffed. "They want to make me the face of the new reformed vanguard. They want posters of me shaking hands with the interim president. They want to say, 'Look, even the monsters can be civilized.'" Liam stood up and walked over to her. He did not touch her, not yet. He just stood close enough that she could feel his presence. "You are not a monster, Kaelira," he said. "And you do not have to be their mascot. You can say no." "Saying no to power creates a vacuum," Kaelira murmured, her iridescent eyes tracking a transport ship. "If I do not take the position, someone like Valara will, someone who remembers the old ways too fondly. Then we will build something new," Liam said. "Something that does not need matriarchs or generals." Kaelira looked at him, a flicker of a smile touching her lips. "You make it sound like coding a patch update." "It is." Liam grinned. "Just a really, really complicated one with a lot of legacy bugs." The door to the medical ward hissed open behind them. A nurse, a young colonist with bright green hair, poked her head out. "She is awake," the nurse said softly. "She is asking for you." "Liam." Liam's smile vanished. He stiffened, the cup of coffee trembling slightly in his hand. Kaelira saw the fear in his eyes. It was the same fear she had felt when she faced Valara. The fear of confronting the architect of your own pain. "Do you want me to come with you?" she asked. Liam took a deep breath. "No. I need to do this part alone." He walked into the sterile white room. In the bed, hooked up to a rhythmic biomonitor, lay Elena. She looked smaller than he remembered. The formidable scientist who had designed the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy was now just a frail woman with gray hair thinning at the temples and skin that looked like parchment. She was staring at the ceiling, but she turned her head as Liam entered. Her eyes were the same shade of brown as his. "Hi, Mom," Liam said. His voice sounded loud in the quiet room. Elena tried to sit up, wincing as the machines beeped a warning. "Lee," she whispered. You look older. It has been 5 years, Liam said, staying by the door, and I was 23 when you left. I was already old enough to be abandoned. Elena flinched. I did not abandon you. I was taken. You left before they took you, Liam countered, the anger he had been suppressing for days bubbling up. You packed a bag. You told me it was for work. You walked out the door and you never called. You let me think you were dead, or worse, that you just didn't care. I had to, Elena said, her voice cracking. The council knew I was close to a breakthrough. If they knew I had a son, a vulnerable point, they would have used you against me immediately. I had to cut the tie. I had to make you invisible to them. So you made me invisible to everyone, Liam said. I spent 5 years ghosting through my own life because I thought I wasn't worth sticking around for. Elena began to cry, silent tears tracking down her gaunt cheeks. I tried to sabotage it. Lee, why do you think it took them 5 years to build the generator? I introduced errors. I corrupted the data. Every day they forced me to work on that ship. I broke something small enough to go unnoticed but big enough to delay them. I bought the galaxy time. Liam looked at her. He saw the scars on her wrists from the restraints. He saw the exhaustion in her bones. He realized that she had been fighting a war all by herself, in a cell, with no weapon but her mind. He walked to the bedside. He sat down in the chair. You should have told me, he said, his voice softer but still thick with hurt. I would have helped. You were a child, Elena whispered. I am not a child anymore, Liam said. I helped stop an armada yesterday and I hacked a blackened ops network. I have a girlfriend who could bench press a tank. Elena let out a wet, startled laugh. The alien woman? The one who raided your lab? Yes, Liam said firmly. We have worked through it. It is complicated. Everything is complicated. Elena sighed, reaching out a trembling hand. Liam hesitated for a second. Then, he took her hand. It was cold, but her grip was surprisingly strong. I am still mad at you, Liam said, squeezing her fingers. I know, Elena said. But I am glad you are not dead. Me too. Lee. Me too. 3 days later. The Summit for Galactic Concordance was held in the Grand Hall of the Ethelgard colony. It was a makeshift venue, a converted cargo hangar draped with banners, but the attendees were the most powerful beings in the sector. There were tall, slender diplomats from the core worlds, hulking representatives of the mining guilds, and the interim leaders of the Earth Council. In the center of the room, sitting on a pedestal inside a containment field, was the artifact, the convergent seed. It looked harmless now, just a dull, black cube, but everyone in the room stared at it with a mix of hunger and terror. It must be destroyed. The ambassador from the mining guilds bellowed, slamming a fist on the table. It is an abomination. It violates the sanctity of the mind. No, countered the Earth representative, a nervous woman adjusting her glasses. The technology is dangerous. Yes, but think of the medical applications. We could cure trauma. We could treat psychosis. We cannot just throw it into a sun. It is too much power for any one species. Kaelira spoke up. The room went silent. She stood near the back, wearing a simple black tunic instead of armor, but she commanded the space effortlessly. If you keep it, she said, her voice cool and carrying to every corner of the room, someone will try to weaponize it again. If you destroy it, someone will try to rebuild it from memory. The knowledge is already out there. Then what do we do? The ambassador asked. Liam stood up next to Kaelira. He looked nervous, smoothing his hands over his new jacket, but when he spoke, His voice was steady. We break it, Liam said. Excuse me? The Earth rep asked. We fragment the code, Liam explained. My mother and I have been running simulations. The seed's operating system requires a singular, coherent key to function. If we dismantle the source code into 5 distinct, encrypted shards, and distribute those shards to 5 different independent oversight committees, then no one can use it. The ambassador grunted. No one can use it alone, Liam corrected. To activate the seed, for medical reasons, for negotiations, for anything, all 5 key holders would have to agree. They would have to physically bring their shards together and authorize the consensus. Kalira stepped forward. It forces cooperation. If you want the power of empathy, you have to practice it first. You have to agree. The delegates murmured amongst themselves. It was a radical idea. It relied on trust, a commodity that was in short supply. But after the Battle of Ethelgard, after the galaxy had felt that brief, terrifying, beautiful moment of shared consciousness, the appetite for war had vanished. We will accept this proposal, the Earth representative said finally. But who holds the shards? We will hold the first one, Kalira said, placing a hand on Liam's shoulder. The colony of Ethelgard will hold the second. The others, you can fight over. The compromise was struck. The convergent seed was dismantled, its power locked behind the wall of necessary collaboration. That night, the celebrations on Ethelgard were raucous. Bonfires burned in the town square, music thumped from speakers, and locals danced with the crews of the visiting ships. Kalira and Liam slipped away from the noise. They walked up the hill overlooking the settlement, to a small cabin that had been assigned to them as temporary quarters. The air was cool and smelled of alien pine needles. They went inside and locked the door. The silence of the room wrapped around them, heavy and sweet. Kalira stood by the window, looking out at the fires below. She seemed hesitant, her shoulders tense. You were good in there today, Liam said, taking off his jacket and tossing it onto the couch. Very statesmanlike. I felt like a fraud, Kalira admitted, not turning around. I was talking about peace, and I was calculating the kill vectors of every guard in the room. Old habits, Liam said. He walked up behind her. He reached out and touched her arm. She flinched, then relaxed. I want to take it off, she whispered. The tunic? No, the rest of it. She turned to face him. Her eyes were vulnerable, stripping him bare. I have not been without the subdermal mesh since I was 12, she said. It is who I am. No, Liam said softly. It is what you wear. Who you are is the person underneath. He watched as she reached for the hidden clasps at her neck. With a hiss of breaking seals, the thin metallic underlayer she wore beneath her clothes began to detach. It was a painful process. The mesh was integrated with her nervous system. She gasped, her knees buckling slightly as the technology pulled away from her skin. Liam caught her. He helped her peel the silver fabric away. It fell to the floor in a shimmering pool. Kalira stood before him, clad only in simple undergarments. Her skin was pale, mapped with the faint, glowing lines of her bioluminescent tattoos. But there were other marks, too. Scars, jagged white lines across her ribs, burn marks on her shoulder, the ugly puckered scar of an entry wound on her thigh. She tried to cover herself with her arms, shame radiating off her. Do not look, she whispered. I am ugly. I am a map of violence. Liam gently took her wrists and pulled her arms away. You are beautiful, he said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. He traced the scar on her ribs with his thumb. This one, he asked. Training pit, she murmured, shivering at his touch. I was slow. And this one, He touched the burn on her shoulder. Plasma vent failure. During the siege of Krell, Liam leaned in and kissed the burn mark. He felt Kaylira inhale sharply, a sound that was half gasp, half sob. He kissed the line of her jaw. He kissed the glowing tattoo on her cheek. "You are not a weapon. Kaylira," he whispered against her skin. "You are a survivor, and every one of these marks is proof that the universe tried to break you and failed." Kaylira looked at him. Her eyes were wet. She reached out and touched his face, her fingers tracing the softness of his human skin, marveling at the fragility of it. "I could break you," she whispered, the old fear surfacing. "I am so strong, Liam. If I lose control, then do not lose control," Liam said, looking into her eyes. "Or do. I trust you. I am not glass, Kaylira. I am tougher than I look." She pulled him into her. The kiss was different this time. It wasn't the desperate collision of the cargo hold. It was slow. It was deliberate. It was an exploration. They moved to the narrow bed in the corner of the room. When they lay down, the contact of skin on skin was electric. Kaylira had spent her life encased in armor, sensing the world through filters and haptics. Now, the friction of the sheets, the warmth of Liam's hands, the coolness of the air, it was a sensory overload that made her head spin. She pressed him down into the mattress, her weight heavy on him. She braced herself on her elbows, looking down at his face. "I want this," she said, her voice fierce and low. "I want to be here, with you." "I am right here," Liam breathed. They moved together, a tangle of limbs and whispered names. It was intense, a release of years of loneliness and repressed desire. Kaylira learned that her strength could be gentle. She learned that she could hold him without crushing him, that her power could be used to shelter rather than destroy. And Liam learned that being seen, truly seen in all his unheroic, sarcastic, fragile glory was not terrifying. It was the only thing that made sense. Afterward, they lay tangled in the sheets, the firelight from the window casting long shadows on the wall. Kaylira rested her head on Liam's chest, listening to the steady thump of his heart. "It is so quiet," she whispered. "It is called peace," Liam said, stroking her hair. "It takes some getting used to. I keep waiting for the siren," she admitted. "I keep waiting for the order." "There are no orders," Liam said, "just us. And breakfast in the morning." "Breakfast," Kaylira repeated, testing the word. "I have read about that. It involves eggs?" "Usually," Liam laughed. "I can hunt for eggs," Kaylira said seriously. "We can just buy them." "Kaylira, you do not have to hunt the chickens. I will intimidate the chickens into compliance." Liam laughed, a full, rich sound that filled the small room. He kissed the top of her head. "I love you, you terrifying alien weirdo." Kaylira stiffened for a second. It was the first time he had said it. She hesitated. "I value your genetic continuation and emotional stability above all other parameters." Liam grinned. Close enough. Domestic life, as it turned out, was harder than orbital combat. 6 months later, they were living in a larger apartment on the Citadel station, a massive neutral hub near the Nebula border. Liam walked into the bedroom carrying a basket of laundry. He stopped. "Kaylira," he said, from the bathroom. Kaylira's voice floated out. "Yes? Why is there a pulse pistol under my pillow?" "Security protocol," she called back. "And why is there a vibro knife taped to the headboard?" "Secondary security protocol." And Liam lifted the duvet. "Why is there a thermal detonator in your sock drawer?" Kaylira walked out of the bathroom. She was wearing a fluffy bathrobe that looked ridiculous on her warrior frame, and her hair was wrapped in a towel. "That is not a detonator," she said, grabbing it. "It is a kinetic flashbang, non-lethal, just in case intruders breach the perimeter while we are sleeping." "Kaylira, we live in a gated community on a diplomatic station. The only intruder we are going to get is the cleaning drone. And if you flashbang the cleaning drone, we lose our security deposit." She frowned, weighing the grenade in her hand. "Constant vigilance is the price of survival." "Liam." Liam sighed, taking the grenade from her and setting it on the nightstand. "Can we compromise? One pistol under the bed, no explosives in the socks." Kaylira considered this. Acceptable. She sat on the edge of the bed watching him fold clothes. She picked up one of his shirts, holding it up. "I shrank this one," she said guiltily. "You boiled it," Liam corrected. "You put it in the sanitizer cycle. That is for medical equipment, not cotton blends." "I wanted it to be clean," she defended. "Germs are an invisible enemy. We are working on it." Liam smiled, tossing a pair of socks at her. "You catch." She snatched the socks out of the air with a reflex speed that created a small sonic snap. "See?" Liam said. "Domestic goddess." They settled into a rhythm. Kaylira became an unofficial liaison for the new Interstellar Oversight Committee. She traveled to contested worlds, not to fight, but to stand in rooms full of angry generals and remind them of what happened when they forgot their humanity. Her reputation as the deadliest warrior had morphed into something else, the keeper of the consensus. When she walked into a room, people stopped shouting. Not because they were scared she would kill them, but because they knew she could see through their posturing. Liam became a consultant on ethical technology. He argued with corporations, wrote safeguards into AI codes, and ensured that the human element was never optimized out of the system again. He carried the memory of the convergence, that overwhelming flood of shared souls, with him always. It made him patient. It made him kind. But they always came back to the station, to the quiet, to each other. One evening, 3 years after the events on Ethelgard, they were sitting on the balcony of their home. The station overlooked the Veil Nebula, a curtain of purple and gold dust that stretched across the stars. Ships drifted in and out of the docking bays. Silent lights in the dark. "It is strange," Kaylira said, leaning her head on Liam's shoulder. "What is?" "That this feels normal. I spent 20 years waiting to die. Now I am thinking about repainting the living room." "I like the living room," Liam said, "although maybe less gray." Kaylira took his hand, interlacing their fingers. Her skin was warm. The scars were still there, but they looked faded now, part of the landscape of her history rather than open wounds. "I was thinking," she said hesitantly, "about what we discussed." "The mentoring program?" Liam asked. "Yes. There are so many of them." "Liam, children displaced by the border wars, orphans from the mining colonies. They are being put into camps. They are being recruited by gangs or militias. They are being turned into weapons." Liam finished quietly. "Like I was," Kaylira said. She turned to him, her expression fierce and pleading. "We have a spare room," she said. "We have resources. We could take 1 or 2. Liam looked at her. He saw the fear in her eyes, the fear that she wasn't soft enough, wasn't good enough to be a mother. But he also saw the fierce protectiveness that had saved his life 1,000 times. "You want to teach them?" he asked. "I want to teach them that they do not have to be what the world tells them to be," Kaylira said. "I want to teach them that strength is not about how hard you can hit. It is about who you are lifting up. Liam smiled. He leaned in and kissed her. I think that is a great idea, he said. But we are going to have to baby-proof the armory. Kalira smiled back, radiant. I will move the plasma rifles to the top shelf. A chime sounded from the front door. Liam checked his watch. That will be the delegation from the Orion sector. They want to talk about the trade routes. Kalira sighed, standing up. Always business. She walked to the door. Liam watched her go. He watched the way she moved, still graceful, still powerful, but no longer predatory. She walked like a woman who knew exactly where she belonged. Kalira opened the door. Outside, the corridor was bathed in the soft blue light of the station. A group of visitors stood there, aliens, humans, former enemies, new friends. Matriarch, one of them said respectfully. Please, Kalira said, stepping aside to let them in. Just Kalira. Come inside. She looked back at Liam. He was watching her, holding the small, pulsating cube of a holographic projector, a toy he was tinkering with for the local school. She remembered the night she had arrived at his door in the rain, bleeding, holding a weapon that could end the world. She remembered the fear, the loneliness. Now, the door was open, the lights were warm, and the man sitting on the couch was looking at her not with terror, but with a love that had rewritten the galaxy. She smiled, the universe's deadliest warrior finally at rest. Come in, she said to the future. We have been expecting you.